Kia ora and welcome to Wahine, a podcast celebrating wahine in business who are carving their own path with intention, courage and vision. This is a space for honest kōrero about building a business that reflects your identity, your values and the legacy you're creating. I'm your host, Sandra Julian, business coach, mentor and wahine Māori. In each episode, I sit down with wahine entrepreneurs and leaders to explore the real stories behind their success, the lived experiences, the cultural connections, and the bold leadership that shape who they are not only in business, but in life. This isn't hustle culture. This is wahine legacy leadership. Tēnā koe Tania, nau mai haramai ki te hōtaka a wahine. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Such a pleasure to have you here, and I have been thinking about this moment for a wee while. So I'm really grateful to be able to share this space with you because the podcast is all about uplifting voices of wahine in business. Wahine who are not only building businesses, but reshaping narratives, reclaiming space, and leading with heart and purpose. And I really feel like that really embraces everything that you do in your business. So with that, I'd like to hand over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in your business.
Ai, o tēnā koe Sandra, kia ora koutou. So ko taranaki te maunga, ko te ateawa, ko taranaki, ko ngaruhini ngā iwi, I tupu aki au I te wahi o Manukurihi ki Waitara, ko Tania Niwa, tuku ingoa, no Ngā Motu aho. So I am based here in Ngā Motu, where I was actually born, and having lived in Australia for 25 years, came back several years ago, and I took the opportunity to really focus and drill down on what I'd like to do in my career, which is as a storyteller and photographic artist. So through the medium of photography and aerial drone, I'm able to help really share narratives and tell stories and speak to what's important and what's really bubbling up and needing to be seen and heard.
I love how you described the photographic narrator piece about your business, because I've really seen that come to life since you've been back home. So love that that's how you've described what you do. With that 25 years in Australia, and how long have you been home?
So I had a massive big shipment sent back to me back here in about end of 2015. And before it even arrived back, I ended up returning to Australia and then realising that I could work between both countries. So it really wasn't until the first lockdown that I more solidly stayed here for more than a year. And prior to that, I would be here for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and then going back to Australia to work and then just building up my clients here organically until the lockdown. And then it was all in here.
Yeah. Nice. So 25 years in Australia, a few years of working between the two, and been home for about a good 5 years now.
Yeah.
And you built an incredible career behind the lens. Your work is just stunning. So for those that might not know your story, can you share a bit about what your business looks like today and compared to where it started in the earlier days?
Yes. Well, the opportunity to be more permanently here in Taranaki was also an opportunity to really tune into from my heart, what it is that I most connect to and what lights me up and what work I'd like to do. And I had, over my career, had developed a series of images titled Tribal, so telling portraits of primarily wahine Māori, and then also in Australia of Indigenous people. And when I came back to New Zealand, a really big project landed that your mother was one of the subjects of Pukowai, the Mokokowai series of trailblazing wahine Māori in Taranaki that were being celebrated through Tūtama Wahine o Taranaki. And that really set a really clear path and opportunity for me to really be focused with working within Te Ao Māori and really helping tell the stories of our Māori wahine in particular. And that also, through the learnings and all of the conversations I had with each wahine and doing research about where each person might like to be photographed, where their place of significance is and where they most connect to, it helped me understand more about the intrinsic connection of wahine Māori to the whenua and our connection with Papa Tuanuku and our, I guess it's that intrinsic connection. And then lots of stories evolved from all the learnings that I think things that became more obvious and clear to me around the healing benefits of the land and places that we go to connect to our tūranga waiwai. Might be going up to the maunga. One of the wahine, the images were, or two of them actually, we captured on the maunga. So being able to focus in telling our stories, our Māori stories, I think that snowballed. And then from that, I became more visible, and I was asked to, when organisations want to represent us as Māori better, then they would come to me for special projects. So it wouldn't be necessarily everyday projects. It might be that they give me a really big brief. I might have 2 or 3 months to do it, and I will have an open opportunity to see where that takes me and how I can represent us better, and also that I have opportunity to be in spaces that others perhaps wouldn't, because they're also my own spaces for our own tribal spaces on marae, different marae around Taranaki, and everyday living for us is so we can see ourselves better. So that has really evolved, is where I can help shine a light on us as Māori, because growing up we really didn't have a lot of people who are Māori who a light was shone on, and that was Leonie Piham asked us that question when I was working on the project, and we went up to Taranaki Maunga, and it was one of the series around wahine and healing locations of significance that Pounamu Skelton was also leading. And I thought, oh my gosh, yes, that is really true, that we, on TV, there weren't a lot of role models. And so I think that has even more value to me and those around me in the spaces that I work in, that we get to be more visible, and that is a legacy that gets passed down. That when the Moko Kauai series was opened at the museum in 2019 in Pukeariki, there were lots of tears from a lot of the people, and so much pride in the daughters or the grandchildren of those I photographed. So it's an evolving, always moving kind of a space to be in.
You know, that project in particular, it was a moment in time, and, you know, you photographed a number of wahine. How do you see that evolving over time? Because now you're going to get the daughters of those wahine and the daughters of those daughters, you know, in your lifetime potentially. Do you see that evolving in that way, or was it just a moment in time for that project?
I think it's very multifaceted, because there's one part of it is to actually observe. In it was around 2015, the end of 2015, and I first bumped into Leonie. My dad and I had taken the family dog down to the Waitara Awa, and it was all happening. Everyone was fishing, and we bumped into Leonie, and she had actually said that her and Ngāropi Cameron want to look at this project, and it took till around 2019 for it to happen. And in the time that it actually, the imagery was displayed into our current day, it is so much more normal to see our wahine Māori carrying moko kauai. So there's those observations around how normal it is, and how Taranaki are very, with the people like your mum have helped us feel safe, that if we want to carry the moko kauai, that we can do that and normalise it. And obviously Rangi Kippa was very instrumental in that as well. In answer to your question around the different generations, I think it's a long-term kind of organic thing happens where I build trust with a particular person, and then their family build trust with me. And then when other things come up where they might like me to be a part of it, there's a trust that is already, started. So other projects could come from that that initial connection that I've made. And with all of the wahine, well, most of the wahine, we all have whakapapa connections as uri of Taranaki Maunga. So that's it. And also, my dad, people, I guess the way has been paved for me through my parents, like my mum and dad both being educators. So there's lots of interweaving, and yeah.
Maybe that's the conversation we need to have with Leonie and Ngaropi around going back to this project 10, 15 years, 20 years down the track, and then looking at the descendants of those original wahine that had the photos taken in that initial project, and doing round 2 of documenting how far that's come, or
yes,
how much it is now being normalized, as opposed to, when my mum had it was very much reclamation and trailblazing the way of reintroducing traditional ways into the world. So, yeah, I was like, oh, let's put that on the project list.
It's really interesting, actually, because when I have asked other cousins if they would like to, and there's a number of us who would like to, what I'd like to wait till one particular cousin is actually ready, and she lives in the Waikato, and she said, because it's actually not as safe to be wearing for her in the spaces that she's in. And it made me realise how fortunate we are in Taranaki that we have had these experiences that we have, and the people that I have got to capture and connect with, that they have made it safe for us.
Yeah, yes, agreed. It very much is about how you move in the world and the circles that you move within as to your safety, and having enough of those around. I definitely look back at my mum's time, and she had surrounded herself with wahine who they moved together, so safety in numbers.
Yes.
And that was very much the way she moved at that time.
Yeah.
What did your business look like in the very beginning? Like, what made this route become your career?
Well, so my dad always loved hobbies, and one of them was photography. And we were really fortunate as children. We actually had several years in the Rangatike in a rural community, or Tairi, it was a farming community. And so Dad would take a lot of photographs of us. It could be that we were eeling and showing the 3 eels that we caught. Could be all our pet day with me with my lamb and all that sort of thing. So I always had photography around me, and it was in the days everyone had black and white dark rooms, and they could make one in their laundry. So I was fortunate from the age of 3 that I was able to help Dad process the images, lay them out on a sheet in the lounge by the fire, and then I was able to squeegee the photos. So I always had that around me, and I also had the use of his camera gear. And when we moved to Waitara when I was 10, I think everything was around sports and surfing, and so I took up that passion of photography, and I was always photographing my friends surfing and playing rugby league and that sort of thing. And I was often over at Waimarae, so that's a lot of where my creative inspiration came from. But it really started from the passion for photographing my friends, and that led on to working at the Daily News. I was doing work experience at the Daily News for quite a number of years, actually, while I was at high school. And then when I decided to go away to Waikato to study media studies, so majoring in photography. So during that time, I'd always get asked to do things, like whether it was a 21st or a family portrait, even a wedding. And so that's where my small beginnings were, from working with the people that I grew up with. And then I got my first job with John Crawford here in New Plymouth. So he was my first employer after I'd done my studying. Yeah, so it wasn't actually until I'd been in Australia for a few years that I finally took that step to actually go out on my own. I'd been working for a commercial photographer, photographing for blue chip clients, and they were global entities. So we were working overseas a lot. And I think after I felt pretty burnt out after about a year and a half and 150 flights, Hong Kong, China, America, rural places in Australia. I was just completely, I was like 5 kilos heavier, and I just wasn't seeing my friends much. So I actually, after all my colleagues kept saying to me, when are you going to go out on your own? When are you going to go out on your own? You've won all these awards and you've done all these things. It's time for you to take that next step. So what I did was I got a job at the Avon head office in Brookvale, and I then built my business up from there until I was no longer needing to work at their head office, and I was actually able to go out on my own full-time. So I've been full-time since around late 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay. And that started when you were in Australia?
Yes.
So working for commercial photography, because John Crawford was commercial photography mainly, right?
He was this out-the-gate, amazing wedding portrait and commercial photographer. He's actually living back here now and still going strong. So, yeah, I was exposed to, through seeing all his images, his artwork, being able to help edit his work, I was able to see what the benchmark was, and that was at the very top. So I think I was really fortunate that I got to work for him, because I've always had an excellence ethos, and I got that from my parents. And to have my first employer being John, so average is not okay, and that is not the benchmark. By having been around John and then working in Australia for someone of the equivalent caliber, I think, yeah, that helped me also in my own success when I set up my own business, by understanding what's mediocre and what's not, and what's standard to always only ever achieve. Yeah.
So when you went out on your own, did you do a certain type of photography? Like, what did that look like? What attracted you in terms of the type of photography that you wanted to pursue inside your own business?
Yeah, so I'm actually known in Sydney as a portrait photographer, so family portrait photographer. So many of my clients were from Mossman on the North Shore, Manly and Northern Beaches, and they all loved to have their family portraits done at the beach. So I was originally known as a black and white family portrait beach photographer. And then some of the clients that I had way back then, I still have them now. So they might not need a family portrait for 5 years, or they might need one every couple of years, but they still get hold of me. And so that's how I can still go backwards and forth between countries. So, yeah, so that's where I started in portrait photography. And then I remember it might have been when the recession hit in 2006 and 7. I had a big team. I had a big turnover, shooting lots of weddings and portraits. I remember talking to Darcy Nicholas, and who's actually been my mentor since around 2006 and 7, who's one of my favourite artists even from when I was a child. And he just said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Think about at least a few other options. And I thought, well, maybe it's time for me to get back into the commercial photography side and look at offering headshots, for example, because a lot of my family portrait clients, they also had businesses. So what would actually happen is, from a family portrait, I'd actually get commercial bookings for architecture, for headshots, and lots of other things. And then for commercial clients, they would also say, oh, well, we need family portraits. So that's sort of what happened. And so that was great to have that balance of both. And I really need variety in my life and my working life. So being able to work in an industrial location or being at the beach photographing a family, the balance, really suits my personality.
Nice. While you were in Australia and working, did you always know that you were heading home? Like 25 years in Australia, you could feel like, okay, I'm really settled here. Like I can carry on with this kind of lifestyle. And especially that you had a big team. What made you downscale and then return home?
Yeah. I actually never thought I would return home to live in my younger days. So I arrived in Australia when I was 24. So had the best time of my life, But what started happening was when I was coming home, my ngākau, my heart, I could feel the pull of Taranaki, the maunga, and my family. And so each time coming home, I would just be bawling by the time I got off the aircraft and to see my parents. And then when I have to leave, the same thing would happen. It would just get stronger and stronger. And then I just knew, I think it was for about 10 years, that I knew that I wanted to go home. But I just didn't see a way forward because I'd worked so hard to capture or to build up the business that I did, I just couldn't understand. At that time, I couldn't really visualize how I could actually make a success of myself back in my home city. However, as good fortune happens, our school friend, Tony Kemp, he came over for a couple of weeks and helped me in my business and looked at all the different facets of my business, where I have my strengths and my weaknesses and where I might need to create a new product or a new range, all that sort of stuff. So he also, and he got to sort of understand how my team rolled and all that sort of thing. And in conversations with him, he was sort of like, Tania, it's time to stop being like the ostrich or the turkey and putting your head in the sand. It's like, it's time, you want to come home, don't you? And I'm like, yes, I do. And he's like, well, don't worry about your team. Because I was really worried about, well, how will they get jobs? Like, they all rely on me for income. And he said, just go find them jobs. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I called other colleagues and I said, do you want my best graphic designer and full-time digital artist? And they're like, absolutely. So yeah, it kind of worked out really well because I had some great support around me. So it was him and also Darcy Nicholas. The guidance, I guess the wisdom that was shared with me helped me. And not to mention my parents as well, helping me to make that happen by letting me come and live with them for a month or so when I got back.
Although having parents who are stable, because I don't know how many times in my lifetime I returned home. There were a number of times where I'm like returning home before I'm like off on my next adventure. Okay, returning home.
Yes.
So it's nice to have that bed when you need it.
Totally. Yeah, and the other draw card for coming home was also that my granddad was 95, and I really wanted to be around him more often. He lasted till the age of 99.909. He died a few hours before his 100th birthday party. We had family came from Australia all over the place. But yeah, I did get to have nearly 5 years with my granddad as well. He lives on Crown Hill in Ngā so that was another incentive to come home as well.
Oh, that's nice. 5 years.
Yeah.
Thinking about your business in Australia, how big was it at its peak? Like, how many staff did you have? What did that look like?
I had about a team of around 7. So that was because that was in the days where the technology hadn't advanced as much, so we needed a bigger team when we were designing and making wedding albums, and there was a lot more hands-on, help needed. So, and I also loved taking at least 1 or 2 assistants on shoots, and then that made my job a lot easier. So I probably carried more people than I really needed to. However, it was all part of the output that I wanted to create. Yes, so I was shooting around 15 to 20 weddings a year and shooting portraits, doing portrait shoots at least 4 or 5 a week. So it was it was a pretty big setup. But the funny thing about all of that was, because I got to nearly $500,000 in turnover and it was just me shooting. However, there wasn't the profit that there really should have been for that kind of turnover. I went walking with one of my colleagues up to Shelley Beach, and we talked about our net profit. And she had decided to move out of her studio when it flooded and actually work remotely and go to clients and actually share the family portrait, like take it to the home and show them the portraits rather than having a big outfit like she'd had for a long time, because it comes with a lot of expense to have that. And her profit was higher than mine, and she had no staff, and it was just her. And that's when the light bulb moment was sort of like, it's time to change. yeah, really time to change. So that was around how I could have a better profit margin and all of that, just really drilling down. And there was a lot that I wasn't willing to compromise, but technology has come so far now that, like, I don't have any full-time team members here in New Plymouth. I have 3 wahine who contract to me whenever I need them for shoots. So, and they've been with me for quite a few years now. So I don't have the big stress of having to. So what happened in Australia compared to what I have now is I was on the hamster wheel. I had to turn over at least $10,000 a week, to break even, and it was just, and at night once I finish my shoots at the beach and I get home, when we're 8 o'clock at night, and then the next few hours I'd be responding to all the messages that the team needed to know for them to be able to continue to work the next day. It could be 1 a.m. before I finished working, and I was just like, I was pretty burnt out. And I thought, no, actually, the idea of moving back to Taranaki has been burning for a long time. And as you know, the draw of and the calling of our moanga, Taranaki,
it's pretty strong. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested, in what team looked like and changes you made, because I think that's where businesses struggle, right? Because they start having their specialty, which in your case is photography, but then having to build the business and look at the marketing and the staff and the team and the sales, it usually becomes more than what the business owner anticipates. So talking about your team is really interesting in terms of what you have now compared to what you had then. But during all of that, you remained the only photographer?
Yeah, crazy.
You didn't have other photographers on board?
No. In Australia, most of the team members were actually trained in photography. So generally people will contact me if they would like to work for me. And sometimes it just aligns that we would love to. Some of them want to come do work experience. And there was also a professional studies college that I was able to get cadets from as well. And then they became employees. So that was sort of often how it worked.
And so now doing special projects, conducting your business now without a full-time team and just having contractors when you need it. So that means that you're doing all of the editing and delivery and shooting and.
Yeah, and the and is actually pretty exhausting. So what I worked out was when I packed up my business in Australia and was able to come back here, I realized that I had a lot more freedom. So I didn't have to worry if I had a full-time staff member and I was going between countries. I just didn't need all that extra. And yeah, it just worked out a lot better to actually not have all the costs. And so then I didn't even have to do all of the digital retouching because I had a full-time digital retoucher who worked for me, who was also trained as a photographer. And she'd worked for me for several years and she was an incredible person to have on board. But I actually had to learn how to be a lot better at all of the digital retouching and editing and that sort of thing. I have always been looking for someone else to help me, and I have found someone to do some tasks, and now we have the option of AI to help with in some of the Photoshop programs that we use. You can actually apply a lot more. There's a lot more options that you can use to help produce your images. I still like to make sure I'm happy with everything, but I think every few weeks technology improves, so there's so much more that can be done. But I do find it pretty exhausting actually doing too much. So that's why, there's always room for drilling down again on and focusing and resetting about what I do and don't want to do.
So operating in Australia, quite a different culture over there. How has your upbringing and your culture, how did that influence how you operated business in Australia versus coming home? Because coming home, I heard that moving into working with your people has been the majority of your work coming home. How did culture influence how you built your business in Australia?
I think some of the values that I learned from my parents, like when you're a teacher, you meet so many different people and they have unusual situations that they're dealt with. So learning to communicate and enjoying other people's company, listening, being able to understand human behavior. I actually think what I learned from my parents is actually how to communicate and get on with people. And that whole thing of manaakitanga, like my dad, growing up in the way that he did in Te Ao Māori, with his extended family, a lot of his cousins and siblings, they were raised by aunties and uncles, and he was raised by an auntie and uncle when his mum died. So I think it's around the cultural values that work really well for my clients in Australia. And they also loved, my clients in Australia actually loved my point of difference as an artist, and they really loved my tribal series of portraits that were always available to be seen on my website. So that gave me a point of difference that they really resonated with. Yeah, I think they appreciated, they wanted, like, so for a wedding, they wanted to book me because they saw me as an artist who could do their wedding photography. So that's very much around wairua and capturing the essence of people. And I think that's very much at the fore in our Māori culture and heritage is understanding each person's essence.
And then capturing that in the lens is not easy to do, right?
Yes, well, that was actually one of the exercises for updating my website and creating a new website and looking at, well, what is my USP and what's different about me? And sometimes it's kind of not so obvious. So I was part of a BNI business network, and most of the people there had their family portraits or, headshots done with me. And they were able to tell me what it was. It was what was special and what was different. And they said, you've got so much energy, you smile all the time, and it's really hard not to smile back at you. And you give us guidance about what to do with our hands and our angles. And I love that, we have helpers to make sure that the clothes are sitting right. Though all those little things, but actually it was a smile. They said that was the resounding thing, was the smile that I gave to them, which they would repeat back to me. And one of my really favorite clients who I'm really good friends with, they said, she's completely mad. It's like she's eaten lollies and she's just got so much energy, but we love her and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I said, am I mad? And I'm like, yeah, you're completely mad, but yeah, that's you. We love you. So yeah, it's just sort of, I think it's some of my personality traits that you either people warm to or they don't. And I think I definitely am. I was born with glass half full, not glass half empty. So when people reflect back to me what it is that they appreciate about me is, naturally that I would be positive, uplifted, not moody, so easy to be around. And yeah, people just trust. So building up trust, that's been a really big one with my clients, that they trust me and they always want to come back to me.
It's so interesting when you ask other people what they see in you. It's such an interesting exercise, but so fun. Love that. Over the years, you said to me before, you've entered lots of competitions and been recognised, and that was part of the catalyst for you going out into business on your own. Now you have earned the title of Grand Master of Photography. How has that changed who you are and what you do in your business?
Do you mean the actual having achieved some of those benchmarks within my profession?
Yeah.
One actually interesting observation was when I was working with my graphic designer, when I was rebranding, when COVID happened, and I realised that, I will be here permanently now. I'm not going back and forth between Sydney and Australia when the borders were closed. And we were trying to think of a tagline, because I used to have one in Australia, impact, energy and clarity. That was one of them. And he said, you don't need a tagline because Grand Master of Photography, that is all you need. And I was like, he goes, yeah, because that says it all in that. And then I thought, well, actually, that is really good that he was able to see that, because I noticed when I first came back, people that I knew that I'd grown up with, they might introduce me and they go, oh, yeah, she's a master something. They didn't know exactly what it meant, but they figured that it actually meant that I've achieved a benchmark of a high caliber. And then that also helped with trust. And I think to this day, when I get a lot of work coming through Google when people are searching, and often it's from companies that are in Australia or in Auckland or other areas in Taranaki. And I think it's because having those achievements actually just helps people go, okay, I can trust that she will do the job and she'll do it well, and she's got the experience. So having worked really hard my whole career to achieve those, the benchmark in Australia of Grandmaster of Photography and in New Zealand Master of Photography, it really helps add value, I think, to people feeling comfortable with working with me.
And changed your perception of yourself in terms of positioning in the market? Has it had an impact on how you view yourself as the business owner?
I think I achieved that goal probably more than 10 years ago. And I think at the time it was something I think it took me around 19 years to achieve that in Australia. And it had been something that at that time was the benchmark for us there was around 16 of us had achieved that in Australia.
Wow.
Yes, it was good just to remind myself of everything that I have achieved, because it's not something you can do just in a blink of an eye. It's all your work that's been judged over, that was 20 years of work that's done really well. And yeah, it is really nice to have achieved that. Yeah, way back then I don't know if I really took that in, but as I reflect, I understand more now how the value of reflecting on benchmarks and milestones, and not just being like, oh, on to the next thing. Well, what haven't I done? I used to be a bit like that. Yeah. I'm not so much like that now.
Yeah. So always been within your nature to kind of look at how you're benchmarking yourself, because you could be a really great photographer and not enter competitions, not, go for the goals of, being awarded a Grandmaster in photography. What was your driver behind entering the competitions and seeking, that level of recognition within the industry?
Well, funnily enough, I haven't entered any images for about 5 years. The last series of images I entered were the Pukoe and Mokukoe portraits, actually. But what was a driver for me through my career to enter was it's an opportunity to try new techniques, expand, like from being like this to expand what's possible. And my curiosity, that was, that's always, I guess that also is exciting, to try new things and try to do what I haven't done before. And sometimes it was using for example, the olden day cameras that have a 5x4 inch sheet of film in it, and you put the black sheet over your head and to capture these images that can be blown up hugely. And it's actually one of them that's in the background. So there's opportunities to try things that you've never done before, whether it's reverting back to old incredible technology, or actually thinking, well, what have I not done before with lighting and that sort of, there's just an endless opportunity to evolve. And sometimes, and I think it's actually some fear has stopped me from entering photography awards for the last few years. And however, I've committed to I'm going to next year. A lot of the work that I actually would like to enter, it has, I guess it's, so for example, I have experiences that I would want all of our people involved to be on board with agreeing and approving. So there are a lot of our cultural narratives that you wouldn't just go and enter it without asking, is that okay with everybody? So for example, we had a tohora, a whale, beached in Opunaki a few years ago, and I was fortunately asked if I'd like to document the harvest and all of the cultural processes around what that entailed. And so there's some very heartfelt, emotional and spiritual images within that, but I've never asked if I could share some of those. But those are the sort of examples of projects that that's a non-commissioned one. There's a number of non-commissioned ones as well that I would love to be able to share with more people.
So outside of your commissioned work as a photographer, do you take on photography just for the fun of it, just for capturing an occasion for your own satisfaction, rather than actually being commissioned to do the project or take the photography or work with an organisation?
Yeah, I do. I could, actually, if say it's summertime and I didn't have any commissions and it was a beautiful sunny evening and an amazing sunset, I would be taking my drone around the coast, and I would be taking it up and capturing some aerial imagery of the maunga with one of our awa. So that's the sort of work that really lights me up, is capturing our aerial narratives and being able to just see what's there. Like, you don't know whether you're ever going to see something like that ever again, because there could be this incredible, unusual portai or hat on top of the maunga, or the wispy, in cloud formation I'm talking about. Yeah, it's just the sunset going down and hitting the cloud and the maunga at this particular time. It's it's like being a hunter, just being ready to go out and do things like that. And it's really fun because I have probably been around Okatu, around the coast, about 14 times in the last 2 months, and a lot of it was for commissioned work, but it's not always going to end up how I might want it, but it's okay because it's all part of the excitement of, sometimes you got to work for the image.
Yeah.
But as far as non-commissioned work, that is actually, I have talked to a whanaunga. She's actually the granddaughter of the first kuia that I ever photographed with moko kauai. So, I've talked to her recently about can I photograph her, because she's very shy and usually doesn't like to be photographed. And she is moko kauai. So I've just taken those steps to carve out some time to. You actually need to have space to even think about what I might like to do in my own time. So if I voice it and say it because that's what I'd like to do, then I think that's one step closer to actually doing it. So so it would be a wahine portrait, a new wahine portrait, that series that I'd like to. It's sort of like a continuation.
Amazing. I mean, it takes a certain amount of sustenance and resilience to maintain a creative business over as many decades as you've had in business. So what does it really take to maintain a business, especially when over that time you would have seen change in markets, change in technology, change in the way people look at photography, how they view it? There's been a whole lot of changes. What's helped you evolve at a time and sustain such a creative business for so long?
Yeah, definitely always evolution, that's for sure. What I have learned to do in the last 4 to 5 years is be really conscious of and listening to my intuition. I think the lockdowns were an opportunity to do that more, because my life was literally almost like living out of a suitcase. 3 weeks here, 4 weeks in Sydney, 1 week here, 3 weeks in Sydney, and it was really hectic. I mean, I was earning a lot of money in Sydney without any advertising because I'd have regular clients. And so I think when the lockdown happened, I was able to, pathways opened up, and then I was able to more clearly focus on and visualize what is my life purpose project. And when I focus on my life purpose project, lots of other things come into alignment and doors open, unexpected, but pathways show up. And I've noticed that that's what's ongoingly happened. So just to give you a bit of an insight into my life purpose project, I remember when I was wanting to come home and I felt the calling of our maunga and our people to return home. I remember going to Owai Marae, and there was a national education conference, and the kuia who I said Weddell Bailey, she was there, and she had someone with her who was looking after her, and she's matakete, and I said, oh my gosh, I came around the hill from the marae and the maunga looked so big today because there was a lot of snow. And she kind of almost punched me on the shoulder. She goes, he wants your attention. I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember the first couple of years, I knew I was coming home because I've been called home, but I was like, what do I have to offer to our people? And what's so special about me? What can I give? And I remember being really, at that time that she said that to me, I'd been quite teary about, I'm not really sure what it is that I'm meant to be doing, what is my greater purpose? Anyway, that all came to fruition and became very clear. And what became clear is that what I'm being called to do is to help tell the narratives of our whenua, our awa, and our maunga. So our rivers, the land, the coast, and Taranaki maunga, and our kaitake and pawakai. So for me, I would like to capture all of the rivers that run off Taranaki maunga, the mountain, from the air, and that would be from helicopter. And I'd been having thoughts about wanting to actually see the maunga from a helicopter for about 10 years, but I hadn't clicked that I would ever have that as that would project, my purpose project. And I've talked to some of our local mātanga, and they were in full support of that idea, and as are our leaders within our iwi spaces. So when I focus on that and I go into I really take time and visualize. When I visualize myself up on the Pauakai where the Tānas, that like a lake. I visualize when I'm wanting to like meditate or connect with the universe, the source. That's where I take myself up there, and that's where I visualize. That's where I am, and that's where I get so much information about where I'm at, what my bridge is, what I need, what are my obvious steps for my next steps to realize my dream. So this is all sort of opened up in the last few years for me. And I've actually, funnily enough, I've always had people around me who are seers, and I've had probably around 12 or 13 in Australia and New Zealand. And I remember saying to one of my friends, I wish I could see like you guys. And she's like, you can see, you're a storyteller, and you see what others don't. It was kind of like, oh gosh. But yes, I think I can see more clearly now around my purpose and understand a lot more. And I've had a lot of time for self-reflection of my personality, my skills, and what I offer. I also more recently have come to the, I'm not sure I'm fully at peace yet, but understanding that I don't have to please everyone and not everyone's going to like me. So when I have a voice and when I stand up for what I believe is justice, then I'm not always going to be in favour with everyone. And that hasn't sat so well for me. But I've been moving through that, and I actually have to laugh because that's all ego stuff. It's like, I've grown up always wanting people to like me. I want people to like me, but I've realised that if I take a stand on certain things, that is not always going to be the case, and that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What has it been like for you to navigate what I hear is your leadership journey, in terms of trying to navigate and understand your personality, how that shows up in the world, how it shows up in your business, how it attracts clients into your business, and more recently, the understanding that what you see through the lens is unique to you, which makes you the seer, which is slightly different to how you've described the matakite, those that can see beyond the human realm, and, really getting clear on your life purpose. That leadership journey, when did you really start to move into that in terms of consciously starting to explore deeper into who you are and what you're meant to be doing in this world?
I think it's a gradual process. I do remember maybe it was around 2014 or something like that when I mentioned that Tony Kemp had come over on the very last day. He drew this circle with all these dots in it, and he drew a stick figure of me on a cliff, and he said, "You know who this is?" Yes, it's me. And he said, "Okay, I'm pushing you off so you can fly on your own now. And do you know what this is?" And the circle with all the dots. And I said, "Oh, yes, that's the people." And he goes, "Yes, they're waiting for you to lead them." I'm like, "What? What do you mean? Your people are waiting for you to lead them?" And I was thinking, I don't know. So that it's, I think there's just opportunities arise where I might get asked to speak, or my leadership shows up in my imagery. So I guess I'm like a voice for our people, and I'm a voice for these stories that need to come out and be told. One example would be the very first time I did my very first drone image on New Year's Day a few years ago. I took it to where everyone goes surfing, and it was the Waiwaranui awa comes out. That's the awa for our hapu, for Ngāti Moehu. When I took the image, and it was the most incredible view I've ever seen, and there was glow around the maunga, and it just blew my mind. And when I posted a few months later the image, someone said, they named the actual pā site, and I was like, we only know it as Stent Road. I didn't know it was Tuiraho. And then that was like a light bulb. It's like, it is my job to help share the narratives and our names of our pā sites, and how it's like re-indigenizing the whenua, the mana of the whenua, and the energy. So I think my leadership shows up in the way of the storytelling. So not necessarily me being in front of people and speaking to people. It's more around what I can provide to help with stories.
What do you do to foster and deepen, that understanding of how you lead and fulfilling your life purpose and moving in the world? What do you do to help foster that and continue to grow that?
Yeah, I'm part of what's called the Shine School. So there's about 12 of us from around the world, and the facilitator is my friend Julian Knoll. He has helped me understand a lot more about intuition and being heart-led in business and in life. So we meet every Friday morning. We've done that for about 4 years. And I also have Shine Buddies. So we practice whatever projects we're working on. We look at whatever it is that's showing up for us or any challenges we have. So on a Monday night, I also meet with 2 ladies, one's in Auckland and one's in Sydney. We meet on Zoom, and we reflect on what our learnings have been, any challenges, and just seeing what's actually getting in the way of whatever it is. So that's how I have my reset, and I think it's like tapping into wisdom, and it's like remembering what's always been there pre-birth and understanding that I can tap into my own intuition, and I can also be supported by my ancestors, my tupuna, that they are there and they're always there, and they are able to help guide and support me. And same with Taranaki Maunga. So when I'm a bit all over the place and I'm feeling, I guess, not regulated well, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, then I have this intention, and I have it on my desk, and my intention is living in the highest frequencies of Taranaki Maunga. And through this Shine School practice and learning, I have learned that we can have a high frequency, or if we're talking about things that are negative and talking about other people, that's a low frequency, and that actually is not good for our physicality, and it's not good for our well-being and that sort of in many ways. So it's actually resetting and realizing that, choosing where I want my frequency to be.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So being conscious. Yeah. Because it's very easy to be really busy and being so stressed out. And I go, I haven't taken time and reset today. And I'm just, I can tap into that calm and peace.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It is easy to be busy in business and forget the reset time and the grounding time, and to take time for you as the business owner to really understand you, your drivers, and have enough consciousness around that to then radiate that in everything that you do. I'm interested to know, how has your understanding of leadership, and I know for me, my understanding of leadership many, many years ago was very rudimentary. So I'm interested to know, how has your understanding of leadership evolved over the years alongside your achievements and as your business has grown?
Well, that is multifaceted. I am very interested and love to be a part of our hapu and iwi spaces, and there's lots of opportunities for learning. So I am always, I might be engaged to photograph events that are within the spaces, and we have such incredible leaders, both male and female, in these spaces, and I've learned a lot from listening to them. And I think it's just also acknowledging that by what I do and how I show up, that is a form of leadership in itself. For example, the people the wahine that work with me, they often will say to me that, oh, you've really influenced this. I don't wear black. I wear certain colors because I now understand that colors can radiate, a meaning for other people. There's lots of things, actually. I think it's just how I show up for others. But I don't tend to look at that so much. And I think when I do, it's when I'm asked to be a panel speaker, and then I'm reflecting on what it looks like and how I show up. And what narratives I talk about. I suppose one thing actually is that I have been involved in the no seabed mining activations, and that's an opportunity to help be a storyteller and using my aerial imagery to help with paddle outs, and actually the imagery from that has gone all around the world in news media. And so leadership can show up like that. It's actually saying, okay, yes, I'm happy to do this at no cost, because I believe that to have seabed mining in Taranaki is detrimental to the longer term health and well-being of our people and our land and the ocean. So those are sort of places where I have an opportunity to show up in a leadership way like that.
Love how you're thinking about that. And it's not just about you as a person, it's much wider than that. So I love that, the way that you just talked about that. So thinking about your body of work that you've created and the lives that you've impacted over the years, what does legacy mean for you, both as an artist and as a businesswoman?
I think for people to be able to have imagery of their family members first and foremost, and have them forever, and have those as legacy pieces, that's really important to me. And I think when I reflected on why is it that I am really drawn to being a people photographer or a family portrait photographer, and now within the iwi and hapu space, an extended family or a tribal photographer, I think, it's those values around what it means to be part of a family, and being able to show love amongst family members and of their loved ones. It's leaving, like, I actually have a number of people that the portraits I've taken of them, they've asked the families when those people have died that they could be on their graves as their portraits. So the legacy it's kind of like having images that people are really proud of, and also to the person I've captured is really proud of, and for their family also to touch at their heart, that when they look at the image, that it really triggers memories and really, really special. Really special memories.
I love that, because the photos that you took of our mum are something that we will treasure for always and ever, because she wasn't the person who was ever in front of the camera. Like, we have very few photos of her during her lifetime, or during my lifetime anyway. So those images that you've captured of her in her last years of her life, we're ever so grateful for those images, and for having Tū Tama Wahine instigate that project as a whole. Yeah, the images that we have, we would never have had otherwise, So, that really resonates with me in terms of, if that's how you've touched our family, and if that's how you're touching many others, that's an amazing legacy, to leave behind. So I really appreciate you and your work for that legacy that you've left us as a family anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a real privilege to have someone let their guard down, and actually that we connect, our Wairua connects with each other. Your mum she did that for me. She knew that even though she wasn't very well and it was really cold for her, she knew what it meant to be captured and how much that meant for everybody, for her to be captured. So again, that's letting her be completely her, and not everybody will do that if they don't feel safe. So it's actually, it really is a really special occasion to be able to feel that person and actually capture them in their, when they are vibrating. It's themselves, their true essence of themselves.
Yeah. And there are some of those photos we look at and we're like, no, that's not really you. That's you putting on your face. And then there is other images where, like, that is just her radiating in all that she is, that she was and that she is. So subtle differences in those photos where we know that that's her face, and then we know that that's her. So it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, to be able to discern between the
two of them. Ever so subtle, but we definitely go through them and go, nope, because that's all her being what she thinks she needs to be on camera, and this is where the magic has really been captured. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so it's that thing of I didn't understand it, but I realised that it's all about understanding human behaviour that you build up over a lifetime, and that was something that I didn't think anything of. But that's actually part of a skill as a creative, is actually, what can you say to someone? How can you behave that they actually will actually be okay and happy with you, to be able to feel safe? Because if you are in front of the camera, and when I'm being photographed, if I don't feel safe or I don't feel confident, there's always going to be that's going to show in my eyes if I'm not comfortable with the person I'm being photographed by. So yeah, that is a really big part of it, is connection, and that's the essence of our culture, isn't it? Is connection and manaakitanga, looking after somebody, and those are all values that I learned growing up through my family and at Waimarai with the people.
Nice. I love that. I have really enjoyed our kōrero today, so I really appreciate you being here and just opening up and sharing your journey, which has looked different in different stages of your life, but really acknowledge you, your work, the legacy that you're here to do, and that you have such clarity around your life's purpose and your work that, you're here to do in the world while we have a human presence.
Thank you.
But I have one final question for you. So this question has been left by a previous guest. And when we've finished recording today, I'm going to get you to give me your question for the next guest. But the question for you today is, what's the part of your business journey or your business story that people don't often ask you about, but you wish they did?
Well, I don't know if I really want them to ask me too much, but I want them to appreciate it more, is actually every stage that goes into a project. And it's not just once I've captured the images, the post-production side of it and is very, very detailed. And the level of input that I put into that is all relative to what I charge. And quite often people also don't understand all of the costs involved in running a business to the level that I run. And for example, $7,000 for insurance per year. That's just one thing, like that sort of thing. So it's probably for people just to have a bit more understanding about what it takes to have an operation of a level that, in 10 years' time, you ask me, can I have that portrait of Mum because we've lost the file? And I go, yes. Actually, we've got them back for the last 25 years. So I've got incredible archives. I've got them in Australia and New Zealand at my office here backed up. I pay a lot of money to Google for storage. So it's actually just understanding, well, what is it to have a level of excellence in offering? And that is all relative to what my fees are and what I charge in my value. So some people don't understand they just think, oh, you've got a camera, you can take photos, it won't cost you anything because you've already got the camera. But it's actually a lot more than that. So, yeah, so it's more of an understanding about what's involved to be at the caliber that I aspire to always be at, operating at.
Yeah, and which is why they come to you, for the caliber of what they get in terms of imagery from you. I appreciate that. I think that is so true for, every business has some level of challenge articulating their prices, their value. And I think that's something that potentially we need to talk about a bit more. So maybe we have a second episode where we actually just dive into value, how to articulate your value, how to price the value so it is understood by the client. Because there is a lot of, for those that don't own a business, a lot of misunderstood in the value. There's a saying that I really appreciate in that, yes, it might take me 5 minutes to deliver this to you today, but it is taking me 20 years to achieve this in 5 minutes. And that is the value that I bring to the job, so it's not about time, it is about the value that we add to what we're providing in our business. So I love that.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Because people don't see that. I've had 30 years of professional development. I've often had coaches and all these experts in the areas that I want to be, really successful in, and that all comes at a cost. So that's all part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
To offer a better service.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you being here with me today, having this conversation on the podcast, and being willing to share your story far and wide. So, ngā mihi ki a koe e te tuahine. Tēnō harikoa taku ngā kau I rongo au ki tō pūrākau. So, ngā mihi ki a koe. Thank you for being here and for the incredible work that you do in the world. You are truly leaving a legacy.
Kia ora, ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Sandra. I appreciate being able to kōrero with you.
Thank you so much for listening to Wahine. If today's kōrero resonated with you, inspired you, or made you stop and think, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with another wahine in business. You'll find all of the links and details from this episode in the show notes. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I would really love it if you could leave a quick rating or review wherever you're listening to the podcast, because that goes a long way to helping others find this podcast and the stories we're sharing in this space. So until next time, keep building your business your way, grounded in who you are and the legacy you're here to create. The podcast music is Te Kawa o Rongo by Nāneko Erawata. The episode is edited by LJS Creative Services, and the show notes and blog post are written by Bellbird Writing.